we're going to use our newly found skill of using loops, and we're going to use it with our first initial database where we have the names and the titles, the dates of the sale, and the sale amounts. So what we're going to do now is we're going to basically build our first report one step at a time. Alt F11 to get into the Visual Basic Editor. Let's do a simple loop. And what our starting parameters, we know it's going to start on 2. So our for next loop is obviously going to be for x, or for whatever equals 2, all the way to whatever our last row is. So we need to combine the skills that we've learned so far. We need to get the last row, and then we'll reference that as the last. Instead of typing 10 from 2 to 10, we'd put from 2 to whatever our variable is that contains our last row. So let's combine those two skills. We're going to create a new sub. We're going to call it my first report. And very simply, for the first one, we're going to do it in a message box. In the next video, we're going to show you how to do that in an actual different sheet so that you can have a printable report. Very easy. So first things first, let's go ahead and get our last row. So let's go ahead and get that now. Let's call it last row equals, and we're going to say cells, and we're going to use rows.count, comma 1, using the end function. We're going to go XL up, and we're going to extract the row. That's our last row. And then we're going to say for x equals 2 to our last row. Do our next x, hit tab, and we're ready to go. So what we want to do, in this case, I want us to do a report for anything over $200. So that's going to be analyzing column 4. Let's hit F8 and get started. So last row we see is 11. That's good. X is going to be 2 all the way to 11, because that's our last row variable. Before we begin, let's plan this out. We're going to say if, remember the if-then statement? We're going to say if cells using row X, which is going to be 2 at first, if cells row X and column 4, which is the money, is greater than or equal to $200, then, and hit enter. Tab, another enter, and I'm going to shift tab and type end if. That way, it won't give us errors later. So, let's just take a look here. Once we initiate our for next loop, it'll actually give x the value of 2. And so now we'll have row 2, column 4, which is cell D4. The value is 482. Is that greater than or equal to 200? Yes. So that would be our first yes to this question. So let's get maybe their name. Let's get their name in a message box. So we're going to say, let's say my message. That's another variable. My message equals whatever my message was, as well as whatever is in that cell. Only we're going to use cells, the current row, but we're going to take column 1, which has their name. So just to show you what that does, let's see, it's going to be empty right now, but we're going to combine that with Geraldo, which is his name. Then the next one, let's see, that's 257, still greater than 200. So this would be Geraldo and Mikal. So now it'll say Geraldo Mikal. Well, don't really like that. You could add a space, but what I would prefer to do is to add a new line, and I'll show you how to do that. You say an ampersand space VB new line, add another ampersand to join that. And the VB new line is a built-in variable that tells it to create a new line in the message box. So if we start over, hit F8. So first we have Geraldo, then we have Geraldo new line and Mikal. It doesn't look like it, but if I hit F5, and it ran. So at the very end, when you're done with all your looping outside of the loop, we're going to say message box, and it's going to be my MSG. Now, my MSG is just a random word. You could put the word blah here and here and here, or any word you wanted for that variable, and it would do a message box of whatever is contained in there. So let's stop it right here. Let's hit F5, runs all the way to the end, and let's show you what the message box looks like. Geraldo, Mikhail, June, Dan, Amy, Teresa, and Fernando. Those are the only ones that are above 200. So if you wanted to make that a little bit more strict, you could see who all has more than 400 by doing this. And let's hit F5 now. Geraldo and Dan. And let's see, Geraldo, yep, more than 400. And Dan, more than 400. So that is correct. In the next video, we're actually going to show you how to make this a little bit more dynamic using an input box.